Well, we're now past the halfway mark of previewing the second round of the OHL playoffs, and this is a series I'm very excited about. It's the number two seeded North Bay Battalion against the number five seed Sudbury Wolves. This is the first time that the Wolves and Battalion will meet in the playoffs, really, since the Battalion made the move to North Bay. This is going to be good. Both teams very competitive, both very passionate fan bases. So this could be a series that you won't want to miss as the Battle of Highway 17 alive and well. You know, the fan bases, they're going to be right into it at both ends. And I know the fan base from the Sudbury Wolves, they're going to have a fan bus at the game on Saturday for game number 2. So that's going to be great at Memorial Gardens. Well, in the news video, I touched on the fact that Sudbury blocking North Bay fans from purchasing tickets until 48 hours before the game. So kind of preventing a fan bus from making the trip to the Sudbury Community Arena. It's just that little off ice drama, but you just got to love it. Playoff time brings out the best in everyone. And I'm so glad to see that these two teams are finally meeting again in the postseason as the Sudbury Wolves and North Bay Battalion. So let's break down this series as we get set for it. The North Bay Battalion, they did win the season series. They had a record of 4-1-2-1. So very close considering some of these games went into overtime. But I think this team, the North Bay Battalion, they're missing a few players, but they're still going to make this very competitive. And the Sudbury Wolves, they got that high-flying offense. So we could be in for some excitement throughout this series. In the first round, the North Bay Battalion, they took out the Kingston Frontenacs in 5 games, while the Sudbury Wolves, they knocked off the Mississauga Steelheads also in 5 games. And it's also fascinating to see the stats coming out of the first round. Let's take a look at the goals for. The Sudbury Wolves had 22 goals for in the opening round, while North Bay also had 22 goals for. Goals against, the Sudbury Wolves allowed 14 goals against. North Bay, they allowed 14 goals against. So even there on the goals for, goals against, which is very interesting to see after the first round, and considering they both managed to win it in 5 games, it's some very similar paths going on here. However, there is some differences when it comes to specialty teams. The Sudbury Wolves, 11 for 28 on the power play, while North Bay, 6 for 21. So you kind of have to give a bit of the advantage to the Sudbury Wolves. They have so many weapons up front on the power play. We've seen it all season long, and they were able to get the job done against Mississauga. But you can't count out North Bay, especially when you have a guy like Ty Nelson on the point, because he's got a great shot, and he's not afraid to fire. He'll take so many shots. He's one of the league leaders in that category. On the penalty kill, the advantage also goes to the Sudbury Wolves. They had an 80% success rate, while the North Bay Battalion, they had a 73.3% success rate on the penalty kill. So the advantage goes to Sudbury on the specialty teams, but outside of that, these two teams very even, which is really exciting as they get ready to take on each other starting tomorrow at North Bay Memorial Gardens. Looking at the top scorers for both teams, we're going to start with the top 5 scorers for the Sudbury Wolves. No surprise, David Goyette, 4 goals, 5 assists, good for 9 points. He led the league in scoring, and he led the Wolves in scoring in the postseason so far, so no surprise there. Dalibor Dvorsky also doing a great job in that opening round, 2 goals, 6 assists, 8 points. Nick DeAngelis, it's good to see him on the score sheet, 2 goals, 5 assists, good for 7 points. He had a great year with the Sudbury Wolves. He had a good point streak going on at one point as well after being acquired at the start of the season from the Windsor Spitfires. He's a great defenseman, and it's great to see him settling down with Sudbury here in the postseason. Fourth in scoring, Quentin Musty, a goal and 6 assists, 7 points. It took him until Game 5 to score his first goal of the series. I was a little surprised by that, but still, he's contributing on the score sheet by getting those assists, so that's a good sign for Sudbury. And then fifth in scoring, Evan Conyon, 4 goals, 2 assists, good for 6 points. Goaltending was a question mark going into the playoffs, but Joachim Vondras doing a great job. He opened the series against Mississauga with a shutout. He has a 2.73 goals against average and a 906 save percentage, so some good stats there. However, he came out of Game 4 with an injury. He did not play in Game 5, so Marcus Vandenberg played in relief. He allowed 2 goals in that game and had a 929 save percentage, so a job well done for Vandenberg to clinch the series in Game 5 at the Paramount Fine Food Center. Now, shifting our focus to the battalion scores, number 1, Dalen Wakely, 6 goals, 4 assists, good for 10 points. He had a great season for North Bay, so it's great to see the scoring continue into the postseason. Owen Van Steensel, 2 goals, 6 assists, good for 8 points. Sandisville Manis, who was picked up from Sarnia at the trade deadline. He had a goal and 7 assists, good for 8 points in that opening round. Justin Ertl, 3 goals, 3 assists, 6 points. And Ty Nelson, 5th in scoring for North Bay in the playoffs. 3 goals, 2 assists, good for 5 points. Now, you'll notice no Anthony Romani, which is a big surprise considering the season he had. He suffered an injury in game 1 and has not returned. Still trying to figure out his status going into the postseason. It sounds like he's day-to-day, but he'd be a great player to have back in the lineup. Not sure about the extent of his injury. Of course, in the playoffs, teams, they like to not disclose certain injuries come playoff time, and that's what we're finding out with Anthony Romani. Plus, North Bay will be without Liam Arnsby, who is serving that 6-game suspension for a hit on Hemstrom. And for Arnsby, he's already served 1 game, so he has 5 games remaining. So he could return in this series if it goes to a game 6. Goaltending for the North Bay Battalion, Dom DiVincentis, 2.46 goals against average and a .900 save percentage. However, he only played up until the midway point of game number 2 until he was pulled due to an injury. So Mike McIver has played since, and he has a goals against average of 2.69 and an .888 save percentage. So Mike McIver doing a good job in relief without the services of Dom DiVincentis. Another player that we're not sure of his status. It doesn't sound like he'll get the start tomorrow night, but when the playoffs come around, you know these players, they're not 100% and they're still going to play. So if Dom DiVincentis can play, he will, but still we're waiting for final word on whether or not DiVincentis will be in the crease for the North Bay Battalion for this series. And I think this series, it's going to be a ton of fun seeing Sudbury and North Bay play. The last time these two organizations met in the playoffs, that was 2013. The Sudbury Wolves, they eliminated the Brampton Battalion in 5 games. That was in the first round, and also happened to be the last time we had OHL hockey in Brampton. That, of course, the Brampton Battalion would move to North Bay that summer. So the last time the two cities had a playoff game, you have to go all the way back to 1992 when the North Bay Centennials swept the Sudbury Wolves in the second round of the playoffs. So over 30 years since we've had OHL playoff hockey between the city of North Bay and the city of Sudbury. This is going to be a ton of fun. I cannot wait to watch these games. I would love to go to these games in person. We'll have to wait and see on that front. But this series, I think, might be the most... I'm expecting this one to have the most intensity just with that rivalry. And these two teams are very even when you look at those stats as we went over it. So let me know in the comments section down below your thoughts on this series. Do you think it goes the distance? Who do you think takes it? And in how many games? Love to see the interaction. And if you're still here, thank you very much for your support. If it's your first time tuning in, why don't you hit subscribe? And then you can come back and we can talk more about junior hockey as we continue through the postseason. I like to cover the OHL outside of the Barrie Colts. I do the play-by-play for the Barrie Colts, but I do like to also focus on what's going on around the rest of the OHL, and that's what we're doing here with videos like this. So thank you for your support, and don't forget to hit like and subscribe, and we'll talk to you again soon.